That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Come on in, file in. Come on. You are correct. You are hearing that lovely intro music to the Fantasy Menace Fantasy Football Podcast. I am joined here today with the full crew. We have Colin O'Brien back. Colin, welcome back.
Great to be back, folks. We are really excited for this evening. Can't wait to hear what everybody's wearing today.
Colin, you are dressed to nines. Who are you wearing this evening?
Today I am wearing a lovely Goodfellows by, I believe, Amazon.com. Absolutely adore this outfit today.
That is fantastic. And on our other side, we have Brendan Danger Zone Alprizio. He looks like he is sporting one hell of a FUBU outfit. But Brendan, who are you wearing? Am I correct in that?
What's going on, Jake? It's Vineyard Vines. It is not FUBU.
Well, welcome, fellas. We have a classy episode this evening, don't we? We have something, we're going to spice it up a little bit. We are going to be a little more sophisticated this evening because what we are presenting to the Padawans, the Podians, either way, we are providing you our first ever award show. It is the Week 5 Dynasty Award Show. It's not quite halfway through the season. It's not quite the quarter of the season. It's an award show, so saddle up, get your bow ties out, get your nicest glasses of champagne ready because what we have in front of you is 5 of the top awards so far in this season. Boys, what's the excitement level? How is the red carpet coming in?
Boys, I am at a 11.3 out of a scale of 4. And I cannot wait to talk about some of the players that we are about to award. Blessed to see some of these players play and absolutely tormented to see some of them rip our hearts out for the first 5 games of the year. And we're going to give them all exactly what they deserve. But let's not forget all the awards that we're going to give. There's a lot of players out there. A lot of them are very deserving of praise, and that's why we have them on our rosters. But today we're talking about the most special and the most disappointing. And so let's absolutely let's keep that energy high. Let's get everything we have to this specific podcast because I want to see all these people in tears talking about the amazing stories that we'll be bringing today.
There are moments of triumph. There are moments of failure. There are plenty of heartstring playing sonnets, even of just how these players have gone so far. Five weeks into the season. It's been a long 5 weeks. There's been some really heroic moments. There's been some really tragic moments, and we are really here to bring that to you as far as what the boys are doing out there on the field. Okay, Brendan, how would you describe the first 5 weeks of the season so far?
I think it's like every year, which is surprising, so frustrating, and literally the reason why I love football so much. We wait all year for this. I feel like I study a ton of film. The 3 of us, we watch and listen to all the reports coming out of camp, and then we believe we know what's going to happen. Week 1 comes along, the rookies, some of them surprise us, some of them disappoint us. The guys in their second year, some of them surprise us, some of them disappoint us. And I just love it because when we are right, I get really excited. And when we're wrong, I'm just happy that we didn't record that week.
Well said. And we all know the industry is listening in on this one. This is a very anticipated show. They know that when you roll out the red carpet for the Week 5 Dynasty Awards here on the Fantasy Menace Dynasty Superflex show, they know this is the best of the best. So tune in. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the Breakout Sleeper Award. Yep. Please sit down. Thank you. Yep. This award is one of the more prestigious awards. We have players that weren't really on the radar, that have really broken out and taken us by surprise. Without further ado, I will share our top 5 nominees. The nominees are Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, Tank Dell, Sam Howell, Sam Laporta, And the unanimous winner is Brendan. Please tell us.
It's Puka Nacua, Jake.
Puka.
That's right, boys. That one's an easy one. Brendan, why? Come on, give me.
How can it not be?
Yeah.
This guy went undrafted in our rookie draft in the League of Record, and I suspect he went undrafted in several drafts. Out of BYU, is he a 5th round pick for the Rams? I believe his 40 time was 4.5 and change. I believe it was almost 4.6. He got banged up in college. We heard good things about camp, but we all know the smokescreen that camp can be. And the guy just comes out firing. He is now the wide receiver 3 on the year. I mean, it is insane. He wasn't on anyone's radar. He got picked up on waivers in our league of record, and I gotta think in leagues across Sleeper and every single service that he was picked up off waivers. I refuse to believe anybody drafted him in a super flex league in the 3rd round.
Nope. I totally agree. And Colin, we spent a lot of time on this in last week's episode. The audience is very well aware of that, but you haven't had an opportunity to really speak a little bit about Puka. What are your thoughts on him?
My man Puka is he's blown me away to be wide receiver 3. Like, I think typically we're talking about a breakout performance, a breakout player, and they're just someone that's more relevant than we actually thought they were going to be. Cooper Kupp goes down, everybody is just completely out on the Rams, and all of a sudden, right, this guy comes out of nowhere. Week 1 posts 22 points, 30 points, 12 points, 31 points, 20 points. And mind you, Cooper Kupp was back last week, still throws up 20 points in PPR. He is electric. He is Cooper Kupp 2.0. And I am super excited to watch him. He has an amazing story. He is someone that I think can have a very long career in the NFL. I will say, and this is a real quick downer for this specific award, but I'm actually super high on him. With Cooper Kupp being it back, he still did get 11 targets. That's fantastic. But to me, it kind of seemed like Cooper Kupp's still going to be Stafford's number 1 read. He's going to be the guy that's going to get the ball. He's going to be the guy that's going to get those guaranteed weekly performances. And if there's no touchdowns to come along with his performance on a weekly basis, I still think his floor is super high. It's a guy that I have no problem rolling out there, but he is clearly the number 2 in this offense. And right, I don't think Cooper Kupp's going to be around forever, but this super excited to see this guy moving forward.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would say in rebuttal to that, Colin, is that Cooper Kupp was the guy. He got 12 targets to Puka Nacua's 11 targets. It seems like you may be able to trust that this is going to be a shared offense. You're going to get 12 targets is certainly a respectable amount of targets. He was Stafford's guy, but Nacua is also Stafford's guy. So we'll see how it goes. Nacua ended up actually scoring more points than Cooper Kupp. I think it's going to be any given week, one could score more than the other. However, it is very fair to say this is a well-earned reward by Puka Nacua here for the Fantasy Menace first annual Week 5 Dynasty Award ceremony here, because he came out of nowhere. He has done nothing but show he belongs. He is a, easily top 20 Dynasty wide receiver asset, and I think all of us have a reason to argue for him to be a top 12 sooner than later if he keeps this up with Cooper Kupp there.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, Ben Solak of The Ringer did a film breakdown of Puka Nacua, and one of the reasons he really liked him is that Puka Nacua is actually not a great route runner. He was showing his film against the Niners and against Seattle, and he was breaking down how Nacua wasn't always on time. He was rounding some of his routes. He was giving away when he was supposed to make it look like to the corner, he was going vertical. He was giving it away too soon. He was slowing down. So one of the reasons that Solak really liked Puka was that he has so much room to develop. And even with the poor route running, and across the first 2 weeks, he got 35 targets. And one of his biggest points was he had a couple plays on film where he was showing that Puka Nacua was more covered than another option on the same side of the field. Stafford would look and still throw it to Puka Nacua, which suggests to Solak and I think to all of us, the amount of trust that Nacua has built with Stafford was huge. And that's one of the biggest things. That's something that, Jake, as Patriots fans, we know when you do not have the quarterback's trust, it doesn't matter what your talent is, you are never going to develop. And because Nacua has developed that trust with Stafford, and he's got not the greatest route running and still putting up these numbers, that it can only get better. Yeah, for sure. Kupp is definitely his guy, Colin. I think we all know that Kupp is an awesome route runner, always open to. He's like Puka Nacua, but better skilled. But Solak's point was there's enough targets for 2 wide receivers in this offense, just like when they had Robert Woods. And Nacua actually doesn't operate out of the slot. He mostly operates on the outside versus Kupp, who does operate in the slot. So I think not only I love Nacua now, I think he's got a ton of room to grow and only get better, even with Kupp there.
Well said, Brendan. The orchestra did start playing us out there. I know they gave us a little bit of a heads up at the beginning of this that they may start doing a little bit of the play out, but they seem
Tell
to
the
keep
orchestra to sit down.
The maestro seemed to have his hands of the baton or whatever that's called that time. That's fantastic. Totally agree. Okay, moving on to our second award of the first annual Fantasy Menace Week 5 Dynasty Awards. We have the Guy Who Has Shown Us Nothing But We Still Believe award. That again applies to both rookies and second-year players. Colin, why don't you give us a little synopsis of what this award means, what it really means to us, the Academy here at Fantasy Menace, and how you really would evaluate somebody for this.
Yeah, the Academy for anyone that isn't super familiar with the work that goes into this podcast, we don't have to recap True Rank. Okay, everybody knows it's one of the most, if not the most, accurate ranking system in the world. But we spent a lot of time watching film. We spent a lot of time listening to the quote unquote experts. And folks, a lot of the experts get things wrong, and that's okay, right? Let's get back up on that horse and
let's not ignore how much we piss off our wives by doing so as well.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into this. You're absolutely right, Colin.
The couch for me in my house, the couch has a firm full body mold from all the nights that I spent on that couch. And it wasn't because I fell asleep on the couch watching films, because I wasn't allowed back into the bedroom. Okay. And that's the God's honest truth behind that. But at the end of the day, we spent a lot of work on this, right? And so sometimes rookies or young players, just the situation just isn't right. They're not ready to get out there. They're maybe a little banged up. They got a couple people playing ahead of them. There's so many things that could get in the way, folks. And at the end of the day, this is a Dynasty podcast. It's a Dynasty world, really. And if you watch 5 games and you're out on somebody who you were super high on pre-draft, you're making a big mistake, right? So really excited about this player, but let's hear those nominees.
That's fantastic. And thank you very much, Colin, for that explanation. And without further ado, we do have our nominees. Our nominees are Bryce Young, Jameson Williams, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Kenny Pickett, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Brendan, please read off your winner of this award.
It's Jahmyr Gibbs for me, Jake. And the reason it's Jahmyr Gibbs is there's not a statistical reason at this moment that I believe in Jahmyr Gibbs. And I'm just going to be honest with you right there. Do you know that Jahmyr Gibbs is in the top 5 running backs, okay, on Next Gen Stats, NFL Next Gen Stats? He's in the top 5 of running backs that have seen the fewest number of 8+ defenders in the box when they're on the field. He comes in at 7.69%. There are only 4 running backs above him that see 8 men in the box less. Now, when you hear this stat, what does this tell you? This tells you that he doesn't see stacked boxes. Jahmyr Gibbs right now is the running back 32. Now, he was out last week, so I'm going to give him a little bit of slack there. but he's the running back 32. And he went 4th overall in our rookie draft. And I thought rightfully so based on the production we saw at a college. The only reason I believe in Jahmyr Gibbs is what he did in college and what I believe he can do still in the pros. And what I think he can do is be close to Alvin Kamara. Okay. I don't think he is Alvin Kamara 2.0, but I think he can be close. And Alvin Kamara's first 4 years in the league, he averaged 102 targets. Jahmyr Gibbs, he's got to be out in the field a little bit more. He's got to earn those touches, and I think he will in the second half. Look, not everybody can come in and just be NFL ready. Gibbs is close, but Alvin Kamara averaged 102 targets, and I think Gibbs can get close to that. I really do, because they have him out there. In 2 games already, he's seen 5+ targets, and then, of course, like I said last week, he was banged up. So statistically speaking, it's not looking good, but the guy's only been on the field for 4 games. We've seen flashes of the talent. The eye test says the flashes are there. And I do think he can be a smaller Alvin Kamara with a little bit more burst. This is purely in the belief. I am
happy. I am happy that you give me the opportunity to step aside from being the host for a minute here, because Brendan, I think you're all wrong. You are comparing him to the wrong player. You're comparing him to Alvin Kamara, and that is fantastic. That is like comparing Bryce Young to Drew Brees, right? You're comparing him to the ideal situation is what you're doing right now. What you should be doing is comparing him to the real situation. We had a very similar style player in that offense just a year ago. If you listen to our last recording, you would know that I am a Swiftie. I am not talking about Taylor Swift. I am talking about DeAndre Swift. He has been unleashed since he has left the Detroit Lions. Let me share with you fellas here just how similar the usage is of Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, granted, I understand that he is only 4 games. He's played 4. He missed 1 into his career right now, but the usage is something for concern, and I just don't want to mislead the Padawans here any further, okay? I think we have a responsibility to make sure they understand, hey, you may have drafted him a little high because of how high the Detroit Lions drafted him. Last year, DeAndre Swift played a total of 14 games. He played 1 game where he got injured very quickly against the Green Bay Packers. So I use his stats and I eliminate that 1 game and I use it against 13 games that he played. Last year, DeAndre Swift averaged 41.6% of the snap share. This year so far, Jahmyr Gibbs has 43% of the snap share. Monty missed a game. That helps that. You have to keep that in mind. Currently, Jahmyr Gibbs is on a 63 target pace on a 14-game basis. DeAndre Swift, 70 targets last year. Very similar, actually 7 less. This year, average rushing attempts per game, if you extrapolate how they've utilized Gibbs so far versus what Swift did last year, 9.75 rushing attempts per game for Jahmyr Gibbs versus Swift's last year of 7.46. However, if you take out the 1 game where Monty wasn't available, which was a spike in usage by Jahmyr Gibbs, which they regress back to the mean, he has 7.33. Not looking good so far. Swift averaged 14.08 fantasy points per game last year. Gibbs is on pace for 9.73. Now, again, I understand that Gibbs' role will grow. They invested heavily in him. However, you cannot deny the usage of David Montgomery. They have him on a 3-year contract. They are going to continue to use him. And I am afraid, if I am a Jahmyr Gibbs owner, that he is playing the DeAndre Swift role. The ceiling is nowhere near as high as you believe that he is. Brendan, you are mistaken to be comparing him to Alvin Kamara. I think DeAndre Swift in that Lions offense is the one you need to be paying attention to.
I just want to read out a couple stats to you, Jake. Stat number 1 is measurables. DeAndre Swift,
number 1 should be the weight.
5'9". Jahmyr Gibbs, 5'9". Jahmyr Gibbs, 200 pounds. DeAndre Swift, 215 pounds. I don't want to call DeAndre Swift thick, but we've seen him.
What's Alvin Kamara's?
Alvin Kamara is 215, but he's 5'10.
Ah,
He's
fantastic.
5'10, and he
Thank you.
wears it well. And I would say DeAndre Swift was probably playing at 225
Without further
in
ado,
Detroit.
I
Okay.
rest
The other
my
thing I will
case.
say,
The orchestra is playing right
the
now.
other thing I'm going to say right here, right now, is I really think about receptions. Okay. That's Gibbs' strength. Let's take a look at the college stats. In college, DeAndre Swift out of Georgia, 73 receptions, 666 yards across 3 years, 9.1 yards per reception. Jahmyr Gibbs, 104 receptions, 1,217 yards, 11.7 yards per reception. Gibbs is a far better receiver than DeAndre Swift. He's more explosive, and he's not a thick boy. He doesn't have to
pay attention to how the Detroit Lions are going to utilize him. That's why I brought up the target share. It's 70 targets to DeAndre Swift last year. Gibbs is on a 14-game pace of 63. I understand that's going to grow, but I don't think it's going to grow that much.
Okay.
You have the emergence of Sam Laporte, you have Jamison Williams returning. I'm just saying,
Oh, Mr.
be
DraftKings, get out
careful.
of here with that.
Be careful.
Jameson
Okay.
Williams, I'm
All
not
right.
worried about him.
The tubas and the oboes and all that are playing so loud right now. We have to move on. Colin,
We're moving on.
please. Who is your award winner for the guy who has shown us nothing, but we still believe?
My award winner for the guy that I still believe in, but has put up total doo doo so far in the league, is none other than Jackson Smith and Jigba. Absolutely adored this player. The whole world did. Everybody said he's the most ready to step out on the field and dominate the NFL. And he dominated in college with CJ Stroud at quarterback amongst two pretty incredible wide receivers alongside him. And he was the most productive. And so I think a lot of people thought, okay, if he could do that in college with that type of team, he could step into the NFL and he could dominate just the same way. It hasn't. It hasn't played out that way. But I'm here to say, I still believe. Okay, there's some red flags that I'm seeing that I don't love, right? But it's actually kind of a similar situation in that there's two wide receivers that are kind of playing above him at this point in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Not sure how long Lockett will be around, but right in college, it's a similar situation, except for
Colin, hang on. I got to interrupt you there real quick because I don't think I agree with. First of all, Tyler Lockett, I don't know if you've looked at his contract right now, but he got extended this offseason for 3 years. And not only that, there is no out on that contract. So there is a very serious cap hit. In 2024, they have a $23.95 million cap hit. In 2025, a $26.8 million cap hit. Now, Brendan, I might need your help on this because I don't fully understand all the intricacies of that. But what that says to me is that he is either going to retire or they're not going to be able to trade him. And I don't see them cutting him. I think there is a significant hit unless they cut him this season. And he's doing too well for them right now. Brendan, am I correct in that?
Yeah, there's an out. You're correct, Jake. According to Sport Track, there's an out after this year. Looks like the dead cap is just under $20 million, but there is an out after this season. So they'd have to make a decision and trade or cut him.
Yeah, so Colin, to your point, I think you're right. There's two guys in front of him, and I think if you have Jackson Smith and Jigba, you have to be very patient. Now, Colin, to your point, JSN is still only 21 years old, right?
Yes, sir.
Where are you ready to give up on him right now just because there's two guys in front of him? We kind of knew as soon as he got drafted there, we still had him ranked pretty high, correct?
Yeah, no, we definitely did. Just looking at where he was drafted, right? He in our league of record, of course, he was drafted at 105, which some people were shocked that he fell that far, and actually, I personally was, and it certainly hasn't played out the way that we had hoped. One thing that I think gives me some encouragement, right? I don't know how long Gino's going to be there. I don't think he's going to be their quarterback of forever. I do think it's possible they upgrade. I think that helps him there. The other thing is, on average, he's hovering around 50% of snaps, so he's not on the field, right? But he is only out there about 50%. He's operating as probably the third in that target between those three receivers. But while he's on the field, he's still getting a decent amount of volume. He's getting So far, he's had 5, 6, 3, which is not great, and then 6. So limited time on field. He's still getting targets. It hasn't played out, but I do think right. Let's put those blinders back on and look at the long term. I believe he has the talent. He has the draft capital. He has um, really the system to that loves to develop really talented players. And I think there's a really still a really um, great chance that he becomes an unbelievable talent in this league. It's just unfortunate that it hasn't played out that way. Jake, to your point, I think it's probably not a guarantee that's going to happen this season. So if you're a win now when you're panicking, I, I wouldn't. It's okay if you want to move on from him, but again, this is Dynasty. You believed in him. Let's not freak out. Okay, no, a lot of poo poo pants, a lot of pee pee pants out there, but clean yourself up, okay, and let's be patient.
Yep. Yeah, and make sure you go back to front, not front to back. That can be very dangerous. However,
I go side
Colin,
to side.
oh, fantastic! That's a unique one. We're bringing that one to the audience. We are digressing quickly, so maybe we should move this award ceremony on to the next award. Next up, we have veteran guy way outplaying his true rank. Brendan, you mind sharing a little bit what that means to the audience? What is that? I think it's fairly self-explanatory, but what does that mean to you?
As our listeners know, we run the True Rank ranking system, the most accurate player ranking system in Dynasty fantasy football. And before the season, we rank quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, and then we update them quarter of the way through the season. We'll probably update them every 4 to 5 weeks going forward. So what we're looking for here are veterans that are just outplaying what we had them ranked at in our true rank system. So if they were really low and that right now they're playing out of their minds, these are guys, and we're looking specifically for veterans. This is not anyone in their first 3 years in the NFL. These are guys that have been around the block a bit.
Expertly said, Brendan. That is fantastic. And we will now announce our nominees for veteran guy way outplaying his true rank. The nominees are Keenan Allen, Adam Thielen, Baker Mayfield, David Montgomery, Zach Moss. Colin, please make the audience aware of who your winner is of this category.
And I apologize ahead of time because this was controversial when I mentioned this amongst the three peers here. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that have a little bit of gripe with this as well. But before I start, let's just real quick recap. This is the veteran guy way outplaying his true rank, not necessarily the person who I want to have over anyone else on the specific team that he is currently rostered on. With that said, my player, way out playing his true rank, is Zach Moss.
Ugh.
Yeah, so much applause. I can't hear anything. Yeah. Okay, here's why. Right, true rank, we didn't rank him. Draft, he wasn't.
You're welcome, audience.
In almost any league across the world. He was not drafted. He was injured before the season. I think he had a broken wrist or hand or arm, whatever it might have been. I will say, if we check the tape, a lot of the unseen footage from this podcast, I did say that Zach Moss eventually, when he came back, would take over this backfield before Jonathan Taylor came back. We have seen him take over this backfield in ways that absolutely no one imagined it would have happened. Jonathan Taylor is now back. He got his contract. Very excited about that.
A
Let's
big
not for-
one.
A big contract, right? We do see typically players that get that big contract. Oftentimes, they're not long for the league. They start to deteriorate. Jonathan Taylor averaged about 300 carries plus every single year in college. And so I am a little concerned about his long-term viability. I do think he's incredible. He's going to slowly
Hold on.
transition. Yes,
Hold on.
please.
You're a little concerned about his long-term viability?
I'm a little.
Only a little?
Pukino.
Brendan, I mean, help me out here. Come on.
I feel like what we saw on Sunday with Zach Moss just running wild, 165 yards, over 7 yards a carry. I feel like what we saw was the manifestation of the replacement value of running backs, which is the argument that the league is making to the running backs, or not the league, I guess the front offices of the league are making to running backs, is that we can go get a guy off the street and he's going to be pretty damn good. And my biggest fear with Zach Moss, or really any run, or Jonathan Taylor, any running back, is that they're also replaceable right now. The way the offenses are run, the way the front offices are putting so much pressure on these guys, the way that nobody is a bell cow anymore. I mean, I feel like every running back is replacement level. And for years now, I haven't been building my dynasty teams around it.
I mean, isn't there a piece of this that the defense came into that game prepared for Anthony Richardson, who left the game early with an injury, and Jonathan Taylor, who just got a fantastic contract, so that when Zach Moss comes out on the field, they're kind of saying, all right, this is clearly a throw or some sort of thing, that they're just getting caught off guard every single time. Are we expecting this to continue?
Yoo-hoo, over here, real quick. Absolutely not. Okay, here's what I'm saying about Zach Moss. His snap percentage is elite. His the amount of attempts, everything he's done this year is eye popping. It's incredible in terms of fantasy points per game. 20, 23, 9, not the best, but if that's his floor, hell yeah. And then 34 last week. That's incredible. Okay. So, yes, I think Jonathan Taylor's going to play a role here. Yes, I think Zach Moss is absolutely not going away. Maybe somebody gets desperate at some point and he could own a backfield somewhere else maybe someday. I'm not saying that's going to happen because I can't imagine that they would want to lose a player like this, especially with Jonathan Taylor, who will eventually start to age out. But Zach Moss is 25 for the record, so that is something that's important to consider as well. So he's not necessarily going to play for another 30 years. He is a running back. They do have a shelf life, but again, let's boil it back to the award. Nobody foresaw this. Nobody drafted him. In our league of record, he was dropped by, I won't say. I would have traded for him. I was pretty high on him. Didn't know he was going to be dropped, and then full transparency, I went to go pick him up, and I just couldn't justify dropping anybody on my roster because we do have short benches. Credit to Jake, and that was the biggest mistake I've made this year so far.
Just both Brendan and I dropped him.
We did.
So,
I cut him, and then he was picked up for $3 on waivers.
Shame, shame on all three of us.
Well,
shame.
Colin, all of respect to you, you did capture the intention of this award quite well, even though I may not disagree, even though I think it is in my duty as the host of this magnificent podcast to make sure that the audience, the Padawans, are very well aware that we are not suggesting you go out and you go get Zach Moss. He certainly has been a veteran guy, way outplaying his strength. There's no denying that. So a award well won by Zach Moss, most likely the last award he'll ever win, other than Doo-Doo Pants Award in next year's ceremony. Okay, moving on to the next category, our second to last one. So everybody, I know you're enjoying this thoroughly, but we only have two left. Our next one is the biggest rookie bust award. Calm down. Okay. All right, guys, stop it. No booing, only cheering. Thank you. The nominees for the biggest rookie bust award are Bryce Young, Quentin Johnson, Jonathan Mingo, Michael Mayer, Jahmyr Gibbs. And the award goes to a unanimous win by the team here. That is Bryce Young. Brendan, explain to me why we all agree on this one.
Well, it pains me, Jake, because I'm just like Bryce. I am team under 6 feet. And I really hoped and I prayed that he was going to make it work, but it doesn't look like it's happening, at least in the first 4 games he's played, because he already missed one from injury. Couple things that I think are problematic. So number one, he's right now QB 31 on the season. Granted, he has missed a game, but he's QB 31 on the season. There are 32 starting quarterbacks for just a reminder for the listeners out there. There are
Is
32.
Mac
So that's
Jones
not good.
32?
I think Mac Jones is above him, unfortunately. I
Oh
think
my god, that's
yeah,
terrible.
that's how bad it is. The thing
Mm.
Mac Jones is QB 27. Yuck. Yuck. It really pains me because I really wanted to believe Bryce Young. The college tape was phenomenal. The biggest strengths coming out of college for him were his
Don't
ability
you
to
lie. Hold on. Don't lie. Nuh-uh. We've been right here on these mics, all of us besmirching this guy. There is a piece of this that we all knew was coming.
We were worried always about both height and size. We've always been worried, but I actually had him one in our preseason true rank. I had him one below CJ Stroud because I still wanted to believe the tape was awesome, his ability to process was awesome, and then what everybody really appreciated was his ability to make plays out of structure. When things broke down, he could do it. On tape, it didn't look so bad in Alabama, but this is the difference between college and the NFL. If you watch Bryce Young's tape, I couldn't figure out where the height was going to show up, but I finally saw some more all 22. And where the height problem shows up is his lack of timing. Bryce Young does this thing that I did not catch in college because I just don't know why. But if you watch his tape now on his dropbacks, he does this weird slide back and then he gets into his 3-step or 5-step. So he's always a step behind because he does this extra slide. Why does he do this extra slide back? It's literally because he can't see over the line of scrimmage. So he slides back, he buys himself more time, and then he can see and get into the play. That's a big problem. He's already been hurt. He missed the Seattle game. There were rumblings that he could have just been, it could have been one of those things where they wanted to play Andy Dalton. They wanted to give Bryce Young a break because the NFL was playing just a bit faster than maybe he thought. But I don't know. We haven't seen much that really suggests to me that he's putting it all together. Now, last week against Detroit, he had 20 points, just over 20 points. But the eye test in that game, it still was not pretty. Everything looked like a struggle. The timing was okay, but not great. He's got Thielen, and that makes no sense to me. That Thielen is like this high-scoring fantasy asset now. But I just think he's got problems right now with his timing. I think the size is a bigger problem than I hoped it was going to be. And the game's playing really fast for Bryce.
Yeah, I don't know if this is almost comical. It's actually a little sad because by all accounts, he's a really good kid. But did you see last week there was a play they had a 4th and 1 or 4th and short, and they took him off the field because they wanted to run
Yes.
a quarterback sneak, and they didn't believe that he could do it. That is, in my opinion, pretty damning. You have the future of your team. You feel that he's the guy. They drafted him where they drafted him. Invest in the guy and give him a shot, but instead they need 1 yard and they took him off the field to put in Andy Dalton of all players. I think that currently sitting, I believe, at 0-5, they might be drafting a quarterback this coming offseason. And I think it would be the right move.
Well, they don't have that pick, right? They don't have that
They
first
don't. You're
round pick
right.
anymore. So
Oh,
someone's going to be
boy.
drafting a quarterback, but it ain't going to be them.
Man, this is I might be out on every single Panther aside from 1 or 2, but man, this is a really, really upsetting start to this kid's career, and their offensive line is brutal. So it's not all his fault, but yuck.
Out of curiosity, who are the 1 or 2 that you're referring to for the Panthers?
I mean, to be honest, I don't really want any of them. I think Thielen has been really impressive so far this year, and that's awesome. But to be honest, I'm kind of out on this entire team because I don't believe that I don't believe that they have like a light at the end of the tunnel. I think the other one is probably Jonathan Mingo. I think we're all pretty high on him pre-draft, and unfortunately, he's one of those guys that's on the radar of yuck as well. But I mean, he's in the situation that we just described, and their offensive line is trash, and their quarterback is probably just not going to be what we hoped he was going to be coming into the league. And so it's not necessarily all his fault if they can find a way to get a better situation. I do think the talent's certainly there, and he's still an exciting player. But yeah, I mean, it's just a shame.
It is. It is a shame. And again, we're 5 weeks in to his rookie career, so we'll see. But I will say you can't say the Fantasy Menace didn't warn you. There is something to this. We had him ranked behind CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson for a reason. There is some conviction in that, and I think we're starting to see the reasons why. And again, I would say it's very similar to Brendan trying to compare Jahmyr Gibbs to Alvin Kamara as opposed to DeAndre Swift. It's just like trying to compare the upside of Bryce Young to Drew Brees. And I just don't know if that's going to happen, but you got to kind of get there in order to make that size work. Okay, moving on.
At least Gibbs has shown us some flashes on tape.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's not the size, it's the motion of the ocean.
Moving on. We have our final and most illustrious award of our first annual Week 5 Dynasty Award Show. That is the Rookie of the Year, 5 weeks into the year. Gentlemen, your nominees are CJ Stroud, Puka Nacua, Bijan Robinson, Anthony Richardson, and Devon Achane.
Now Achane.
Achane. And
Let's
Devon.
not do that. Achane is so much cooler. He made a mistake.
Excuse me.
Achane.
Excuse me. And Devon Achane. Gentlemen, we have a unanimous winner on this one. And I do need to say, before we give this one away, I did have Jahmyr Gibbs as my bust in last round. We're not going to go. We already went through it. I did have Gibbs as the bust. I had him as the bust. It's okay. I had him as the bust.
Okay.
Hate me if you want to.
We're
okay,
done with that. We're done with that.
We do have a full 3-way victory here for none other than CJ Stroud. Brendan, Colin, we probably weren't that high on him, not as high as we should be compared to how well he is performing. But we liked him, right? We didn't really like the situation. We liked the draft stock. We saw what he did in college. We thought he had very good accuracy. We saw in his final game at Ohio State that he could use his feet. He demonstrated that, but we weren't that high on him. But boy, oh boy, should we be a little upset with ourselves for not really seeing just the potential that he has? Colin, what do you think about that?
Well, first off, I wasn't on the last episode of the podcast, and I want to credit Brendan because he was really high on him, and he deserves that victory lap 100%. And it's not like we weren't, right, but there was just so much coming out about him that just wasn't it wasn't like it just kind of left a bad taste in your mouth. And from a talent perspective, yeah, absolutely, he was certainly there, but let's not forget, right? We are a fantasy podcast. We are not necessarily drafting those players.
Dynasty Superflex.
Yes, okay, but let's boil that
full
down.
point.
Okay?
Full
We're
point.
talking about fantasy football. We're not actually putting them out in the field and trying to get real live football wins, right? The reality is
Dynasty Superflex, full point PPR. Like and subscribe.
Okay, thank you. And can you mute? How do we mute the? Do we can mute the host? Can we mute him?
Can't. No, keep going.
Yeah, we know we can.
Orchestra.
Yeah. Okay. But right, like, so what we're in the business of is giving you advice on how to get the most points and players that are going to give you the most points, fantasy points on your roster. And so guys like Anthony Richardson, which absolutely, right? Look at his college tape versus Stroud. It's crazy for us to rank Richardson over Stroud. But I back that up now. I know he's not. We're not saying he's the MVP or the Rookie of the Year because Stroud is doing something that really no one has ever done. He literally just set a record, broke Dak's record of attempts to pick. And so he just broke, I think it's 186 attempts, no interceptions. That's incredible. I mean, we look at that roster, right? We said the Texans were not necessarily going to be a really good team. There's some young talent, but it's young. So I just didn't see him being immediately as effective as he has been in the NFL so far. And I am actually like blown away by him. I think he's been incredibly productive. He's been mature on the field. He seems like he's been on the field now for years, and so the sky's the limit with this guy. And obviously, I want to see how it continues. It's only been 5 games, and sometimes players regress, but I am super impressed with him. He was incredible in college. He seems seemingly just as good in the NFL, and I do think there's a lot of upside now with him as well. But there's also there's also the potential that this team, which we all thought was going to stink, could kind of revert. So let's see what happens with the rest of the year. But I'm excited about this. I think a lot of the guys that we had listed in this specific award, they all could have been mentioned. But I think this is a super flex dynasty podcast, and it makes sense. We needed to have a quarterback in this one.
Totally agree. And we alluded to it last episode as well, the pace that he was on as far as breaking the rookie passing yards record. And he still is on pace. Right now, he's on pace for 4,967.4
Wow.
passing yards.
Wow.
That is compared to Andrew Luck's 4,374 yard record. Now, granted, there's an extra game now than back then, but CJ Stroud is on a 292.2 yards per game pace. That would put him at, if you put him in a 16 game season, 4,675 yards, still over 301 yards more than Andrew Luck's rookie record. So he is really doing something special, and 0 interceptions as well in doing it. Brendan, talk to me a little bit about the weapons that he has as well, and why it's so surprising to us that I think we thought him coming in, this team was in a rebuilding mode. We didn't think they had the weapons there yet. Maybe they were going to develop, but they certainly are ahead of schedule. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Nico Collins coming in the year was a huge question mark. He was the wide receiver one, but how good was he actually going to be? He's unranked in our true rank coming into the season, and rightfully so. Nobody really knew. We have a first-time defensive head coach coming into the Texans organization, which isn't exactly known as a top-tier organization. Nico Collins coming into his third year out of Michigan really hadn't shown us too much, bits and pieces here and there his first 2 years. He was a wide receiver one. They signed Robert Woods, who looked done last year. I still think he's kind of done as a veteran presence. Tank Dell, again, 165 pounds soaking wet. Come on. And John Mechie coming off of a torn ACL and cancer. They had nothing but absolute question marks back there. So for CJ Stroud to be putting all this together and being a true leader, you see him up there on the press conferences. I think there's so much to like there. And you're right, Colin. Last week, he had 249 yards. He was 20 for 35. He had a touchdown as well, but it was only 14 points. So the only thing about CJ Stroud is that you're probably not going to get too many yards on the ground like an Anthony Richardson. And it pains me that Anthony Richardson is hurt now for the third time, because very easily could he have been our MVP.
Second time. He didn't miss any game time that first one. Come on.
All right, that's fair.
Let's not spread a narrative.
All right,
he's fragile,
injuries.
Jake. Okay, you need
Please.
to own up.
Please.
Three separate games. He's been taken off the field.
All right, okay. Look, I want to do something. All right, enough.
Yeah.
I want to address that real quick.
Music playing.
I want to address that real quick. CJ Stroud is the rightful owner of this award, no doubt about it. But I'm going to do
Gotta be the MVP.
I'm doing
rookie.
I'm doing my Kanye West moment here with Taylor Swift. CJ Stroud, you're great. Anthony Richardson, you deserve this award. Anthony Richardson, if you guys are sitting here and telling me like, oh God, I got to lower him on the rankings, or if anybody in the audience is doing that, take a step back and remember what it looked like going into this season. We thought he needed at least a year of development. We thought it was a bad idea for him to even start this year, to learn under somebody. So that was mainly based on his throwing accuracy. He needs to learn about the mechanics. He needs a little more time under an NFL coach. He has proven that part of it. He is way ahead of schedule. What he needs to get smarter about is how he plays the game and avoids injury. The concussion, I don't think you can really knock him for that. That one is just a hit in the end zone after you score the touchdown. The shoulder injury, that's certainly one that he needs to get a lot smarter about. However, he is still very much on schedule. If I still have Anthony Richardson well ahead of CJ Stroud in my rankings, do not falter on that. Those of us in the AR-15 army don't fall behind. Back to our award, though, for CJ Stroud. Didn't mean to take away from him too much there.
Nope,
But
for
I
the
think that
record.
that's part.
No, go
I
ahead.
think that that's part of the reason why we have CJ Stroud here as our rookie of the year, though, is that sure, he's not going to get those points on the ground that Anthony Richardson's very clearly going to get you, but he's going to be out there and he's going to be solid each and every week. He's 22 years old. I think you've got a quarterback for 10 years with CJ Stroud. Now, with Anthony Richardson, do you have a quarterback for 10 years? Out of the 10 years, how many games is he going to play? Sure, yeah, freak accidents.
20 years.
Oh, we'll see. But that's why I think that I just love everything CJ Stroud's been doing. I love the way he plays. It's a more classic style for sure. So
0 interceptions. I mean, for him to be doing what he's doing in 0 interceptions with those weapons, it's not like he has these alpha wide receivers too. It is really impressive what he's doing there. And like Damian Pierce isn't really helping him out that much either. So they're leaning on him and he is executing. So all kidding aside, I am very biased towards Anthony Richardson, but he is clearly the winner of this award because I think any team would be ecstatic to have this as their quarterback. He's got the longevity in front of him. He plays smart. He plays in the pocket, and he is executing those throws exactly how you hope he does. They're going to invest in him more and more. They're going to build up that O-line more. They're going to have better weapons probably, which they may not need to do for a little bit because of how those guys are developing. So if you got CJ Stroud in your team, you probably got him for much less than what he's currently worth, and you got to be pretty psyched about that.
Got to be. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we clarify for the Padawans. I don't know. At least I'm personally not. Jake very clearly just alluded to this, but I just want to be clear. We're naming him the rookie of the year, but nobody, in week 5, nobody should be trading straight up Stroud for Richardson. I think Richardson is still our quarterback of this rookie class, still our quarterback 1. Okay.
Oh, thank
and
God.
So
Whew.
I absolutely am. If you can trade Stroud for Richardson, do it. No questions asked. I'm just saying red flags for Richardson. It's very similar with Lamar, right? He's an incredible talent. He's unbelievable when he's on the field, but every year he's missing a bunch of games. And so if that trend continues with Richardson, like it has so far through 5 games, 3 separate injuries, that is a huge concern. I think he can work it out. I think he's super talented. I'm really excited about him as a player, but right, we're super flex, right? So we're looking at, we really need 24 startable quarterbacks every single week. And so I think Stroud is locked in. He can be that for the rest of his career. And that's what we're really excited about.
Yeah, and really good point, Colin, and I appreciate that too. I think kudos to all the players that are on this list right now, even the bus players, because maybe they come back and they prove us wrong. Jahmyr Gibbs certainly has an opportunity to prove me wrong, but that does conclude our first annual 2023 Week 5 Dynasty Awards for Fantasy Menace. I can confidently say, gentlemen, that we are the only show out there that has a Week 5 annual award show. I think that's pretty impressive. And we may have multiple award shows. So I think that's why we specify it's week 5. We may have a week 11. Who knows? We may have an end of year. The Padawans need to stand by and wait and see. But kudos to everybody out there. Colin, Brendan, thank you guys for your due diligence, your hard work, your hard effort. I know you met with the council, with the committee, with the academy to make sure that this is a fair award show. To the audience, thank you very much for your behavior. Some of you got a little out of hand at some points with the booze, but we are looking forward to going forward to the Padawans. I urge you to like, subscribe. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify. Leave a review. Matt McHugh in particular, you intimated that you did not listen to our last episode. Please go ahead and listen. Leave a nice review. But with that, gentlemen, anything else you want to say to the crew?
What we got in store for next week, Jake?
Well, Brendan, I believe our last episode was the Risers episode. That leaves only one thing. Con, what
The
is that?
Oh, hi, Mom. I would say probably the followers.
Exactly. Okay.
No, sorry, the followers. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
not gonna list all our followers, but
Yeah.
I did just want to reference one of them.
Yeah. Hi, Mom. Yeah, that's right. It's the Hi, Mom Fallers is going to be the next episode. We're very excited about that. And stay tuned for that. Padawans, Padians, we got something good going there. Uh, we've had a lot of upside, a lot of happiness. Time for us to bring it down a little bit. And it's time we all face the truth. Stay tuned next week to face the truth. That's it for this episode. Congratulations to all the victors. To the rest of you that didn't win, we'll see you next ceremony.
Peace.